Hello, Robert. Welcome to the Mentally a Badass podcast. I'm so happy to have you today.
How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm so glad to chat today about, you went through a lot in your life. When I was reading about you, learning about you, I was like, man, that's like three different things that we got to talk about. We're going to get into. And so, I think that's really cool after everything you've been through and you're still like, like slaying in life was what I was going to say. So, yes, I'm excited for us to talk about what you went through, how you build resilience, and what you're doing today. So, in every Mentally Matters episode, we're going to get to know you more. So, let's go and first chat about the death of your father. So, first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
So tell me, like, what happened there? Like, where would you like to start?
So to really get into it, you kind of have to understand him. So he
Mm-hmm.
was a Vietnam veteran, and he was an engineer. He was just always a go-getter. Like no matter
Mm-hmm.
what he was trying to build, he always found a way to get it done. Like can't was just not in his vocabulary. So for example, my parents bought a new refrigerator and a new table. So it gets to the house, and the table was a little bigger than they anticipated, and the refrigerator was a little wider than they anticipated. So when the table was in place, the side door couldn't open. It kept hitting the table, right? So normal people would get either a smaller table or a smaller fridge to make everything fit. But my father ripped out the side of the house, reframed it all, and switched the window and the door, because he wanted that table and he wanted that fridge.
All
So just to
right.
give you a little insight into how his mind works. So I'm the youngest of seven siblings, and we were all athletes, and he pushed us all, so that level of resilience and just pushing through problems stemmed from my parents' upbringing, and it transferred over to us. So when he got sick, so I manage a gym, and I have like an obstacle wall, like you would
Mm-hmm.
find at an obstacle race, and he was going to extend it 2 feet. So remember, he came to the gym. This was in January of 2019, and he's doing his measurements and stuff, and I just noticed that he was getting winded, but he was 70, I believe, at the time. So it's like he's getting old, you know what I mean? So I figured, like all of us in the family, we just kind of chalked it up to, well, he's getting old now. He's gonna start slowing down. Come to find out, a couple of weeks later, I get a phone call from my mom saying that they're in the hospital with dad. He's having some heart problems. Kind of downplayed it a little, she didn't want the family freaking out. But then come to find out, he was in, I think at that point, he was in stage 2 or 3 of heart failure. So just over the course of the year, he lost a lot of weight, was starting to lose strength. And just fortunately, it didn't drag out for years, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, we're all gonna die, so death is a part of life. So just starting to mentally prepare that he might not come back from this.
Mm-hmm.
So when he ultimately passed, he actually died at a good time because he died right before 2020. Because had he survived into COVID, it would have been way, way worse. Like we wouldn't have been able to see him. He would have been all alone in there.
Yeah.
But when he passed, he had 3 generations of us around his bed. They unsedated him enough to where he could hear us. So like we all got to hug him, tell him we love him, and we ended the care. And watching him die was rough because I've never seen anyone die before. So
Yeah.
just watching him take those last breaths and those final moments, like I'll never unsee it. But there was
Mm-hmm.
just a lot that he left behind for us to be grateful for.
Yeah. When you were talking about how your dad just, if he wants something, he makes sure that he gets it. I just want to go back and just say that sounds like a true inspiration, and that totally makes sense. Like what we're going to talk about resilience. That when you see your parent caregiver act like that, it definitely translates to the next generation. My dad's the same way, so I completely get that. From your standpoint. So he's not. Yeah, he sounds like an
Yes.
amazing man, and even though like it is, of course, very unfortunate that he passed away, but I'm glad that he like lived up until almost 80, which so he's lived, a long life. And I've actually interviewed a couple of people where they've lost parents right before COVID in 2019 as well. And they tell
Mm.
me, they're like, obviously I don't want my parent to die, but I'm kind of glad they did right before COVID because then it would have been so like obviously much harder. This one woman said that her mom would like basically just not do well with COVID and everything
Mm.
that was going on, and how, of course, horrible, like your father passing away. I'm just glad he's at least in a good place. He's not like in any pain, and that he had all of you guys around him, because I feel like that is the greatest gift, to be surrounded by the people you love
Yes.
before you pass away. Like, I hear stories where that's not the case and such. So I'm very happy that you were able to have that last moment with your father. And,
Thank you.
there's like two different feelings there, happy that you can be there, but then also sad just, seeing your father pass away. And I can't even imagine that, because I've never experienced that. Hopefully, not for a bit.
Knock on wood.
So after he passed away, how was the grieving process? Like, I'm assuming it was hard. I can't imagine just being like, "Yep, all good." So tell me how the grieving process went after that.
I mean, people deal with things in different ways. So for me, it was maybe right around October, I had a feeling around then that we were gonna lose him. Like he was on the last legs. So I just started shifting my mindset from sadness to gratitude. Like, cause
Hmm.
I have a podcast myself, and I've interviewed lots of people, lots of men who never even knew their father, whether the father just wasn't in the life. Had a guy whose father was killed in Vietnam while his mother was pregnant with him. And I was 45 when my dad passed. So there's a lot of memories, a lot of life lessons, a lot of moments there, a lot of things that he built that are still here. There were a lot of things at my gym that he built, at the church that my sister used to go to. Like he built a lot of things there. So like his fingerprints are all over. And so when you have those moments where I miss him. I wish I could talk to him. Like there's a thing called YouTube. There's videos. We can watch videos from the old family reunions and see him with his beer on the dance floor, dancing all crazy. And just like there were just ways to revisit those memories without the pain. So
Yeah.
like in navigating grief, we people get stuck on the what. They get stuck. Like if I just stayed stuck on watching him die, I would never get over it. It's like I can't get stuck on that. I saw what I saw. I'll never unsee it, but that's not the whole story. So now you got to go in and you got to talk about picking up the pieces afterwards. Because as I said,
Mhm.
he was an engineer. When I tell you, I got a double check with my mother on the final total. We scrapped like 11,000 pounds of scrap metal that he just had throughout the yard. you know, he,
Wow.
he has three different garages, and it was just packed with stuff, with like all kinds of tools for everything under the sun. And we had garage sales for like probably 6, 7 straight weeks. Like he just had so much stuff. But in each of those moments, like as we're cleaning up and as we're finding stuff, like it triggered memories. It's like, oh, I
Hmm.
remember when he brought this home and he built this with that, and so just like sharing that bond with the family, because myself, my siblings, some of my cousins came up, and because like my parents have almost an acre and a half of land, so there was a lot of stuff to take care of, but just everyone coming together and just remembering all the good times. It's very easy to just get stuck in that sadness, and then you end up falling into a depression. But when you
Hmm.
lean into gratitude and remember the happy times, and then laugh about the tough times now. It's like there were things that he did that weren't great, but we can laugh about it now. And just try to stay in that appreciative, gratitude state.
Yeah, and then I know some people, instead of, like, when they have the funeral and the wake, that I mean, it's of course appropriate to mourn the death, but also celebrate life.
Yes.
And then I see that, I don't know if I see that like on shows, or people tell me, I don't remember exactly where I saw that whole idea, but I I always mentally prepare for that day where I lose my parents, because I need to do that. Otherwise, I would be a wreck. My mind would automatically go too dark, because just
Yes.
the brain. So I always mentally prepare. I'm like, okay, if this happens, like, I'm gonna make sure. I know my dad's gonna want to play like a disco song at his like one of, I don't know, like after his burial or whatever. Like, I just think of like the happy things, and the way I
Yes.
think about when people pass away is that at the end of the day, they are always going to be here. They just don't have a body on
Yes.
earth. That's how I see it. And I'm really huge on like the whole spirit and body being two completely different things. So I feel the comfort knowing that if that were to happen, the body that they rented is not like, yeah, you kind of get what I'm saying. I'm trying to find
I
the
get
right
it.
wording.
Yep.
It just, it's comforting, and I kind of think of that myself too. It's like at the end of the day, we rent this body, we got to take care of it.
Yes.
But that's like my whole like spiritual philosophy and such. Going, speaking of body and the body that we rent, let's talk. It's not sweet. I'm gonna be like, let's talk about your body, but you did have an injury. So the transition makes sense. But like, let's talk about your body, Robert. We're talking about the knee. So you had a knee injury. So, and of course that is life altering, life changing. I actually did interview someone who actually did hurt his knee, and he was supposed to, I think it was the NBA. Yes. And he couldn't anymore. It was like a very sad situation, but he went into acting instead. So let's talk about you. What
Okay.
happened? Where did the knee injury happen? Let's get into it.
So this injury was actually many years in the making. So very similar to what you just shared. I had my eyes on the Olympics for track and field,
Hmm.
and so I was at practice at the University of Rhode Island. I was doing the triple jump, and I on one of my phases I ended up landing kind of straight legged, and my knee popped.
Oh
So that
God.
was where so that
Sorry,
was
I
where
feel
it
like I felt
started.
it.
Not no, it's okay. It's like I was able to come back and compete the next year, but I just didn't have the same drive on my jumps that I had.
Hmm.
So the Olympic dream was dashed. So I started managing restaurants for a while. There was one period in my life where I was overweight, and so I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I was like, I got to get back to my all American body. It's like this isn't me. I was like, so I ended up losing 45 pounds, and so from there, once I got back down the weight, I was like, I think I want to compete again. And so I started training there was a master's track and field meet. I said, you know what, I'm going to get back out on the track. So now this was before I got into fitness. So it's like being an athlete, you just do what the coaches tell you. Like I don't
Hmm.
really understand how the body worked and all that. So like had I knew then what I know now, that injury would have never happened. But anyway, so I had a gym quality leg extension machine in my basement, and I was hitting it every single day. And now I know that's not good, right? So I was setting,
I wouldn't
I
know.
was, oh,
I'm
okay,
like, cool.
yeah.
I
So
know
so
nothing about
just
any of this, so.
yeah, that would be like if I worked my shoulders all the time and didn't work my biceps as much. You end up with an imbalance. So then you try to do a heavy lift and you end up popping one of the tendons because your muscles are out
Okay,
of balance. So
I can
that's
understand that.
exactly what happened to me because I was doing that every day, but I wasn't equally working my hamstrings and my
Mm.
calves. So the day the track meet comes and I do the long jump first, I win the long jump, and then it's time for the high jump. And so now at this point, I actually have my age bracket won. I was in the 30 to 35 age bracket, but this is where competitive spirit slash ego kicks in. There was still a 45-year-old jumping, and I was like, I'm not letting this old guy beat me, right? So I take a jump, and I felt a tug in my left knee. So this is the one that I hurt when I was 18. So I felt a tug, like it wasn't painful, but just something felt a little off. But the other guy jumped, he missed, and he looked flat. So I was like, he's not making it. I said, so let me just take one more and just put this to bed. And my now ex was there, and she was like, you don't have to jump. And I said, yeah, I do. So I get out there, and everything was great. Like what I tell you, when you're doing outdoor track and field, like weather plays a role, but the weather was perfect. There's minimal wind, it was sunny, it was warm, like it was just perfect conditions. So I'm coming down to do my approach, right? I throw the arms back, I plant the foot to jump, and then I saw white. So when I came to, I'm on the ground and I look down at my leg, and my knee is about that far up my quadricep. So it just like fully ruptured. And so now, fortunately, it wasn't painful. So like there must have been some nerve damage or something. It's like I felt the separation when I planted, but like as I said, then like I passed out for I don't even know how long, but like I said, I saw white. I came to, and there it is. So I yell for Kelly to call the ambulance. And the athletic trainer comes running over. And now I had my hand like this over my knee. So she couldn't see what was going on. Excuse me. So she comes over and I said, I have an ambulance on the way. And she's like, oh, I don't think you'll need an ambulance. And then I move my hand and she goes, oh my God. She's like, how are you not in pain right now? And I was like, I can't feel any of this. I'm like, if I could, I'd probably be in shock. And so I said, the more important question is, how do I pick up my gold medals? So she starts chuckling, right? So now we'll fast forward. So the ambulance comes and now I'm at the ER. So this is where everything changed. So the ER doctor comes in. He takes off the brace that the EMTs put on and he opens it up. And without missing a beat, he looks me right in my eyes and he says, you'll never run or jump again. And at the time, well, I still have 5 kids, but I have 5 kids. But at the time, they were 5 little kids. They were
Mm-hmm.
10, 6, 2, and I had twins who were 4 months old. So hearing those words, initially I started tearing up because I immediately went to the dark side. Like you're trying to tell me I'll never be able to play basketball with my boys. Like we'll never be able to go run around at the park with them or play tag. And and then the competitor in me kicked in. And I was like, I'll keep it clean. But I was like, you don't effing know me like that. I was like, you don't know, you can't tell me how I'm gonna heal. It's like you can't possibly know definitively that I'll never run or jump again. I said, so let's work on getting the surgery, and then we'll worry about healing when the time comes. And so I just put that notion right out of my brain at that moment before the
Right.
surgery even happened. Before it even happened, because and the reason why like my podcast is built around that story, I wrote a book with the same name that's centered around people telling other people what they can and can't do and to
Right.
not
Yeah.
let that happen. Like me coming back from it, that's not the main story. The main story is if I just held on to what that doctor said,
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't have made a full recovery. I actually met someone, I think I was at a Walmart or a Target. He saw my big knee brace and he says, hey, what'd you have happen? I said, oh, patella tendon rupture. And he's like, he bends his leg like maybe that far. He's like, get prepared for that. He's like, I had that surgery. And I was like, I'm already past that. Because like the doctors and the physical therapists, they gave me minimum standards to do. They didn't give me maximum. So I found where my thresholds were and I stayed within my threshold. So after the first follow up appointment, from there I really took things into my own hands because this was my first surgery. So like I didn't really know it. So I did everything that they told me to do 100%. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
give the disclaimer: I'm not telling people to not listen to your doctor. I'm just telling you what I did.
Right.
And so I just started experimenting and try to find out like how far can I go until it hurts. And then I just stayed below the hurt. And then I just repeated that every single day. So it was probably, I think it was like 4.5 months post surgery. I'm at the track with the kids. The kids are running around doing their thing. I was like, you know what? Let me just try. Because at this point, I was back to walking without crutches. Because at one point, I was in a wheelchair. I had a walker and then crutches. So like, I literally had to teach myself to walk again. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
let me just try to run a little. And so I went back. My heart was kind of pounding a bit, not gonna lie, because I definitely didn't want to go through that surgery again. But I did it. I got both feet off. Now, granted, I looked like a newborn giraffe, but I was able to run. Right, I was able to do it, and that moment right there was when I knew I was gonna make 100% recovery.
I was thinking when you truly believe that you can recover and you really are so focused on it, you will. Like, I'm so
I
big
agree.
on that. And I always get super inspired when people tell me stories like they say like miracles, like they said I couldn't do something, or they say that I'm gonna be sick
Mm,
forever and this, and then they're like, nah, I don't believe you. I'm gonna believe and I'm like a huge like big on like manifestation and like I don't know if you ever heard of the book The Secret. I don't know if you ever
yes.
heard of it. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So I feel like it's kind of like a little bit of a mix. It's the mix of you being like your father, like so dedicated and really intentional, and then also just like your brain is also like doing the same at like the same time.
Yes. See,
Yeah.
it's because people forget that the body heals itself.
Uh-huh.
When
Yes.
you break a bone, right? When you break a bone, yeah, the doctors might have to set it and they put the cast on, and then you
Mhm.
wait because the body heals itself. So if
Mhm.
you're telling yourself, I'm never going to walk again, I'm never going to walk again, your brain's going to believe it. And then you're not going to walk
Yeah.
again. It's like, you know, let's take my second surgery because like the scenario I gave you earlier actually happened. I ended up tearing my bicep tendon in my
Mhm.
shoulder, and I had surgery. This was in 2015, the day before Thanksgiving. And I'm big into obstacle races. And I signed up for a race at the end of April. And this was before I even had the surgery. And people are like, how do you know you're going to be recovered? I said, because I'm going to be. There was no deep rooted science behind it. I just said, I'm going to be. So now, because I learned from the knee surgery, it's like I learned about finding my thresholds and all this other stuff. Like I came back from this, like the doctor was like astonished that I was able to do that race at the end of April. And it wasn't just like a 5K. This was like a 15-mile, 40 obstacle race that I was able to do all of the obstacles only 5 months post surgery. But I had it in my mind, like I'm going to be healed by the time that race is here. And then
Mhm.
I just took the same steps as before. Every single day I worked on it, did what I have to do. A lot of people that get hurt, again, I manage a gym, so injuries do happen. It's part of fitness. And
Mhm.
I'll I'll ask my clients, like, are you doing your stretches? No. Are you doing your mobility? No. Well, that's why you're not getting better. It's like you have to put the work in, like anything else in life.
Right. Right. I was just thinking back where like people are like, "Oh, why isn't this working? You said it's gonna work," and it's like, "Why are you doing the work?" No.
Mm,
Yeah, that's like a common thing. That is such a common thing. I'm like, how to like. I guess this is kind of like not really all topic, but like, I mean, you kind of already answered it. You just say back, "Well, you got to do it." Like, I'm like, how do you respond back to that? Like, how do you motivate people to actually do it? Because I feel like I try my best to be motivational and helping people and such, but it's like I feel like I don't even know how to go about it without even like
mm.
sounding like bitchy or you know what I mean? It's like how do I do that? Like I don't know the right words. I don't know what to do. Like
It's vision. It's vision.
mhm.
It sounds cliche. It's like most people go to mindset first. Mindset's
Mhm.
part of it, but you gotta know what are you working towards. Like with
Yeah,
the knee
true.
injury, right? With the knee injury, I'm working towards running again. So it's like I'm gonna
Mhm.
do these stretches, I'm gonna do these exercises, I'm gonna do the electric stim, like I'm gonna do all of these things with the end goal of running again. It's like that's why I'm gonna do this. It's like no, I don't want to go out tonight because I need to do my stretches because I'm
Mhm.
going to run again. It's like so you gotta have the vision, and then you gotta have the boundaries. Like there's a lot of things that come into place before mindset even kicks in. And this is
Mhm.
my own philosophy. So I always tell people that we're all different and people do what works for them. Like my style is very brash and straightforward. Some people love it. Other people
Mhm.
need a more gentle approach. So, like I
Yeah.
said, I don't sit up here and say like my way is the only way to do it. That this is just what works with me and the people that I work with. And I say the first thing, we're human beings. We have feelings, right? So
Yeah.
so the first step in casting that vision is you have to feel what you want. And with me, I pictured myself just running on the beach with my kids. It's like I saw that moment. I felt that moment. So when people come into the gym, and regardless of what their goals are, I'm like, what will that do for you? Like if you lose 20 pounds and if your bicep muscle pops through, what will that do for you? How will
Smart.
that make you feel? How will that change things for you? And I try to help them envision the end result. So that way we move on to the next phase, which is eliminate the excuses. It's like what derailed
Mhm.
you in the past? Is it family? Is it time? Is it money? Is it your inner circle? Is it your spouse? And we got to sit there. We got to map out a plan to not let any of those things get in the way.
Mhm.
And then from there, we set the long term goal. Then you got to set the short term goal. Then you got to assess your inner circle. Like, is my spouse going to be on board? Are my friends going to be on board? Are my kids going to be on board? And you got to figure out a way to manage that inner circle so that they can't derail you. And then from
Yeah.
there, you create your action plan. And the action plan is where the mindset kicks in because now you have to do the work. right? Because anybody can sit down and write out their goals. Anybody can do that. But
Yeah.
then when that alarm clock goes off at 4:30 in the morning, are you hitting snooze, or are you getting out of bed? Because like I tell my early morning crew, I'm like, go to your smartphones and disable snooze, because you can disable it. And my alarm is a video of me reminding me what my goals are. So that's what I wake up to every morning. It says, get out of bed. You got lives to change. People are dependent on you. Get up now. Let's go. That's what I wake up to every morning.
And it's a video?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't
Like
make an
it.
alarm like a video. I thought it was just audio. I also like on Reels. Sometimes I'll get like that motivational stuff with the gym, and I noticed I got more of it when I was like actively going to the gym like all the time, and now I just realize I
Mhm.
don't get it that much anymore, which I should. I plan on going to the gym later today. Got to keep me too. I'm gonna
Okay.
do it. I'm gonna do it.
Yes.
And it's like I don't even have like any excuses. I don't know why.
Why?
Because it's in my apartment complex. It's like a walking distance. I'm right by the lobby. I'm just like, I literally just gotta like get dressed, get out of my apartment, and just walk across the street. Not across the street. Like I'm like literally my building is like
Hmm.
I'm lucky where it's like right across from the lobby where I don't have to like take a car and drive throughout the whole complex. It's right there. It's right there.
Yes. See, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier, because you need a strong enough reason to walk in, right? And that's just
Yeah.
people in general. People ask me all the time, like, why are you always in a good mood? I said, because being miserable sucks. And they're like, don't challenges come your way? I said, yeah, they do. They come. I solve it immediately. I don't let it fester. Solve it immediately, and then get back to being happy. Like
Hmm.
if something comes out of left field, and it's like people just let it linger. They let it linger,
Hmm.
and then as the days go on, like I tell people, I'll have them like hold up a weight. Like you can just hold
Hmm.
up, even if it's a little 2 pound weight. If you hold it long enough, that
Hmm.
shoulder's gonna burn, and then it's going to burn to the point where
Mm.
now it's a problem, right? So if
Mm.
you just handle whatever adversity comes in, like if you go outside to leave and you got a flat tire, right? You don't have time to be throwing temper tantrums and all this other stuff and posting on Facebook, oh, I'm going to be late now, look at this nonsense, right? Just change the damn tire and then go. You know what I mean? It's like as humans we spend so much time on the nonsense, and
You're
then
so right.
we and then now we don't have time for the important stuff because we're so focused on the nonsense.
You're literally so right, and I'm like, I'm actually doing a lot better with that, where I'm
Hmm.
trying to like not deal with like the bullshit and such. Actually, yesterday, fun fact, I was here and there. I'll do some like Uber Eats just to like make some extra, income and such. And
Hmm.
so I was delivering food yesterday. And naturally, when you don't see like a sidewalk, there's like the grass, you just pull over real quick, so you're not like in the middle of the street. And so I always do that. I'm always pretty fast just because I just want to just deliver and call it a day. So I pull over, and all of a sudden I'm like ran over something, and I'm like my car's stuck, and
No.
I couldn't move my car. I was like, when you're like in the snow and it's like you're stuck and you gotta like floor it or do something to get out. It was like that, and I was like, and there's like these like two metal rods that are sticking up, and
No.
yes, I was pissed. I was like, at first I thought it was like the customer's house. And I was like, first I was fuming in my head because I'm like, oh my God, my car. Right. And then also just like, I was thinking it was one of those like metal rods where you know how people don't want you to park on their lawn or whatever.
Yes.
But, which I don't think it is. 'Cause I looked at the Google Maps and it's like in a super random area. Like if they really didn't want that, I feel like it would be more like around it or something or whatever. And plus I didn't like pull onto the lawn. Like it was literally like what, like 2 inches onto the lawn. Like it wasn't like I
Yeah.
was going all the way into their like property. And so the first thought was like, crap, my car. But then I did like the flashlight. I'm like, it was dark out. Because also it was dark. I didn't really see the metal rod until it was like too late. And so I messaged the customer and I was like, but I put it in a way where I was like, maybe she didn't know there was two metal rods there because I didn't want to be unprofessional, because obviously
Yes.
those text messages are monitored. But also I was pissed. Um, so I said to her, I was like, "Hi, I don't know for sure if this was intentional, but there's like two metal rods on your lawn, and my car went over it. I'm not sure. I don't think there's any damage, but just I don't know if you know it's there. Just want to just make you aware. Like it was like that. Like not like how dare you put your metal rods in
Yeah.
my car. And then as I was going up to the door to deliver the food, I realized it was not her, it was her neighbor. So I'm like, oh, great. I want her to. I'm like, great. I did all that thinking for nothing. And then she was like, oh, but she knew it was her neighbor. She's like, that's my neighbor. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I just realized that. Sorry about that. I'm going to go drop your food. And she was like, I'm sorry for what happened to you. I'm like, no, it's like, she was nice. Thankfully, she was nice. Not like, how dare you, you know? She's like, I'm sorry for what happened to you. And I'm like, it's cool. It's like, it's not your fault. And so I'm here thinking there's no like, I had to like move on, you know, to the next order and drop off. Cause I actually had no choice. Like I literally had like another order, and
Yeah.
I was so freaking mad. And then I come back to my apartment and I looked cause I called my parents and told them what happened, and they're like, look underneath the car. So I did look underneath the car, and it was damaged. So like there was something that came out, like it was something that snapped out, and I'm just like,
Mm,
I was so mad, but I did take a picture of the metal rods and I know the address. So I was like, if there's damage, like I'm not paying for that. You know what I
absolutely.
mean? So I'm gonna figure out what to do with that. I think my boyfriend said he fixed it, but still it's a bunch of scratches and everything like that. I gotta figure that out later.
Mm,
Anyway, that's not really too relevant to this conversation. I just thought it was a funny story
it is.
to mention. I used to have an alarm clock that was supposed to be motivational to get me out of my bed. And that's actually what I was talking about with the Instagram. So there was this
Yes.
like Instagram, and it was like one of those like motivational kind of audios, and it teaches you how to like put it as your alarm clock. So I did it, and it was like literally, it was so aggressive, the motivational. It was like, it says, it says, good morning, you little piece of shit. Get out of bed, or you got this. It was like one of those like really like aggressive kind of,
Yeah.
you know, to
Like
get you out
David
of bed.
Goggins.
It was something, yeah, it was like something like that. I'm like, this is gonna help me get out of bed. No, it didn't work because I
No.
was annoyed. I was because like I'm not a morning person clearly, so I was like groggy and like
Mm.
shut up.
Yeah,
So now I
it takes like
learned it
a
doesn't.
no,
I
go
was gonna
ahead.
say, oh, I was gonna say so, but I learned that aggressive alarm is not gonna get me out of bed. What does get me out of bed though is when it's like calm and it slowly gets louder, and like
Yes.
that gets me out of bed because it's like calmly waking me up, not like, yo, get out of bed, you piece of shit, go, you're like,
Exactly. Yeah. So you gotta find what works for you. Because with
yeah,
me that brash type. I'm competitive anyway, so it doesn't take much to push my buttons. But for some
yeah,
people, they need that. Like I see it even in the gym. Like I can have a class of say 20 people in the gym, and I push people in different ways. Like some people need the hand on the shoulder. You can do this. Other
mm-hmm.
people need the shut up and do it. So it just depends
True,
on, yeah, it just depends on the person. Some people, they need that strong arm, and other people need that gentle approach. Like the gentle approach is in there, but like
mm-hmm.
I try to gravitate towards the people who need that extra push, cause that's
Yeah,
how I operate myself. Like it's tough for me to identify with people that don't push themselves. So I try to bring in like people who were say athletes, and
mm-hmm.
maybe they become parents or they started working too much or whatever, but that athlete is still in there, and I know the right buttons to push to pull that athlete back out. Whereas if
Yeah,
it's someone that hasn't worked out a day in their life, they've been sedentary, they're overweight. Like I told you, I was overweight once, but when that
mm-hmm.
happened, I had already felt being an all-American athlete. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I was working towards. Someone that's been sedentary their whole life and they've never been fit, they don't, they've never felt that. So going back to earlier when I said we have feelings. So if you have someone that's never felt it, that's where you have to help them cast that vision so they can visually feel it. Like imagine yourself on the beach, feeling comfortable, not being self-conscious with people walking by, or just
Mm-hmm.
going into the water and not worried about people looking at you. It's like just feel that for a second, and then you help them cast that vision. And that works with anything. Because like
Mm-hmm.
my podcast used to be called Shut Up and Exercise, and then once I
Mm-hmm.
realized that the principles that I use to help people reach their goals, it's the same principles in anything in life, whatever it is you wanna do. Like, for example, if people come in for a consultation, we got to start with their current state. It's like, what's your current weight? What's your height, age, all that stuff. You get all diet habits, right? So you got to get that starting point. Then it's like, all right, where do you want to go? So we need to know what they're working towards, like I stated earlier. And then like once I started just ironing it all out, I was like, you can do that with anything. Like, if you want to start a podcast, all right, what do you want to talk about? Who do you want to talk to? What is going to be your central theme? See what I mean? So like it works with anything. If you want to write a book, it's the same steps. If you want to switch careers, all right, what career do you want to go into? Who do you want to work with? How much money do you want to make? And you go right down the list. And so when I wrote the book, it's like I didn't write this just to write it, so people can because people always ask me how, right? This is how. So built into this book are 13 worksheets. Right, so there's a little bit about myself and my backstory and my upbringing and all that stuff, but it's 13 worksheets. And for example, the first one is called "There's Nothing Wrong with You."
Hmm.
As you're working with people, like if I was to ask you to name me 5 things that you can't stand about yourself, you could probably do it easily. But when you say name 5 things that you love about yourself, people are like, hmm, like they have a hard time answering that question. Like in exercise, I don't remember if I put it in this book or not, but there's an exercise that I do where I say, write 20 positive things about yourself, write 20
Hmm.
negative things and people fly right through the negative, right through it. And then they struggle to say 20 positive things about themselves.
Yeah. and
It's amazing.
and it takes time to get to a point where you're thinking of positive things and then it's easy to go through, because when he said that, I was thinking in my head where my mind didn't go. I mean, there are of course some things that I can work on, but I've learned things that I love about myself. So if you
Yes.
were to give me that exercise and going to the positive first, I would say that, I love that I'm able to get out of my comfort zone. Like, for example, I have like social anxiety, and yet I talk to strangers like every single week and record it.
Mm. Yeah.
It's like, it's like,
Irony.
right, right, exactly. It's like, oh, hey, Robert, nice to meet you. So tell me about your father's death. It's like, like I even made a joke where it's like, oh, so what do you do for a living? Oh, I talk to strangers about their trauma and I broadcast it to everybody. Like,
I love that.
and that I posted a reel and actually did really well because it was so funny. But like, yeah, I like how I can get out of my comfort zone. I like that I'm empathetic and I'm really good at like relating to others. I like that I'm authentic. I like that I can be real online without caring what people think. Like, I've worked so much on myself where like I see the like like the progressing and just doing better, and then if I think about negative, it's like I'm working on like my triggers. Like, I hate, like, for example, like when I was telling you how I didn't know how to properly motivate people. Like, that's something I didn't like about myself. I'm like, I don't like to get
Mm.
frustrated with people, and I get frustrated really easily, but I have to figure out, why do I get mad so easily? Like, it's deeper than
Mm.
that, right? So
Yes.
I'm working on that. I'm a work in progress. Like, I've definitely have come so far, and I was brought up, well, not, yeah, I was bullied a lot as a child. So all of that was like being called stupid and weird and annoying and ugly. And what's so crazy is that I was being called annoying all the time because I talk too much, and now I have a podcast. Isn't that really funny?
Remember I told you earlier I was an all-American athlete?
Yeah.
I got voted most talkative in school. With all of my athletic accomplishments, they voted me most talkative.
I didn't even get
Who would have thought?
anything. I didn't get anything. Know if they even had most talkative. I have no idea, but I know I didn't
Mm.
get anything because at that time too, I wasn't shocked. I'm like, I'm a loser. Like, no one cares. Like, those were all those thoughts. But like, I just think back at every amazing thing that's happened in my life, and I actually am currently taking acting classes right now, and
Nice.
yeah, which I actually had to go out of my comfort zone and push myself to do that because that's terrifying, right? And I always had these limiting beliefs like, oh, I'm too old, it's too late, like, all that stuff that's going through your head, and then also being told I was like stupid and just like all this stuff. But if I really want something, you go for it, you figure it out, right? And so one of my classes, we were like being basically figuring out like what category, it's called spec, but like for a casting director, like what age group would I fit into, like what do I like based off of my looks, like what would I like, I'm also like Spanish white, that they'll categorize me. I look more like a blue collar and white collar. They said, "Oh, well, you look like a worker. Like you'll be like a worker." And I was like, "Oh, really?" 'Cause I thought that was like funny because I'm like, I guess I'm like more white collar because I don't work with my hands. I do like this, and then I do other like social media stuff. But they're like, it looks like you had to work for everything that that you have today. And that made me think like, you're not wrong. I think back on my life, you know, I've worked since I was 16. I've literally earned everything that I have today, earned it myself. Like I've worked so hard, even though like I've had things like in my way because of just limiting beliefs and trauma, like I'll just cry through it. It's fine. Like that's because I know I'm a sensitive person. But you know, I don't let that keep me from what I want in life. You know, like if you think about it, I'm just killing myself. And I want to be able, like, you have one life. I want to be able to like live it and achieve what I want to achieve. Of course there's moments where like I'm so burnt out and I just like watch Netflix all day, but you know, I want to ask you.
Well, that's everybody. But
Yeah,
before this question, I just want to expand on what you just said,
okay.
because like you said you're a feeler. So one of the things that
Mhm.
completely changed my leadership style, I believe this wasn't too then. I took a course in human dynamics, and they taught us the four major personality types. I'm sure somewhere in your life you've taken like a Myers-Briggs test, like those personality tests when you
Yeah.
sign up at jobs. So this is a division of that. But there's leaders, there's doers, there's thinkers, and there's feelers. Right?
Yes.
So those are the four major categories. And you can't manage people the same. Kind of how I said earlier, like in my classes, I push people differently because people receive info differently. So
Mhm.
with you being a feeler, like if you and I were going to collaborate on something, I would have to communicate with you as a feeler. Like where a
Mhm.
lot of people go wrong is I want you to think like me, and that's where a lot of
Mm.
relationships break down, because no, like like you can tell me right between the eyes, what do you need? Like I need it that bluntly, right? And I know you don't receive that, so I wouldn't come at you in that same way. That's what a lot of people don't understand. They think, oh well, this is what I do, so that's what you should do. But it doesn't work
Mhm.
that way.
You're
And a
so
lot of
right.
relationships break down because of that.
Yeah, you're so right. And the amount of times I always tell people when you see people like arguing or getting mad, like they think this way, it's like, come on, guys, like everyone's brain's different, and our brain, and it's like it just, our life is made up of all of our past experiences, right?
Yes.
So it's like we're all brought up in different areas, we all have different upbringings in our household. Of course there's some similarities that can cross, especially if you're like, if I'm living in my hometown my whole life, like everyone there in a way kind of still thinks a certain way. Like I used to live in New Jersey and I moved to Florida, and it's just a different world in New Jersey. I like to say it's like its own little country. Like it's
It's true.
just such a, it's right. Like it's such a different area. But the way I learned that was when I did the Disney college program, and when I was there, everybody from was all over the world. Like everybody from all over the country, even international. Like I met people from everywhere. And when we were
Mm.
talk about things, I was like, and it just didn't make sense to them. I was like, crap, like everyone's so different. Like well, and the funny thing too is in New Jersey, I don't know if you know this, but the night before Halloween, there's this thing called Mischief Night. Have you ever heard about it?
I
Oh,
have
okay,
not.
guess not. I think it's just a Jersey thing. It's just a Jersey. 'Cause I think I'll bring that up one time when I like with my roommates, and they're like, "What the hell is Mischief Night?" And I'm like, "You guys didn't do that. It's like when you get the toilet paper and like throw it in the eggs and like like that's what it is. That's literally what it is. You get the toilet paper, you get the eggs, and we just like a bunch of teenagers just running around town, just being a bunch of little assholes. But that's literally what it is. Nobody knew what
That's
it
great.
was. I'm like, oh, I had no idea it was just a Jersey thing. Like I really thought it was like universal. And then also the way I say water too. Apparently you don't say it like that. Apparently it's water, not water. So
Warder.
it's yes, yes. And then people when they hear I'm from Jersey, they're like, "Oh, like the Jersey Shore," and I'm like, "No, no, it's not like that," you know.
No. Because that's what they see
Oh,
on TV. Like, have you ever heard of coffee milk?
I think so.
Yeah, like that's
Like,
that's a Rhode Island thing.
oh, like coffee and milk, or like,
No, like coffee milk, the drink, like
okay, I
chocolate
didn't know
milk.
if, okay, I didn't know if you were talking about like a movie or,
My bad, my bad.
yeah, because the way
No,
you
just
asked
just
it,
talking about we're just talking about regional things. Yeah,
oh,
because like the first time I went to California, I asked for a coffee milk, and they're like, "All right, you want a coffee with milk?" I'm like, "No, a coffee milk." So it's
oh
kind of
my
like
God.
chocolate milk, but coffee flavored. They're like, "We've never heard of that."
Yeah, that actually
It's
happened to me. I was
crazy.
in, yeah, it happened when I was in Vancouver. I was in Vancouver in December, and we went to a coffee place, and I wanted like, they were like, oh, I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, can I get a French latte or something, like a French vanilla latte? And they're like, oh, do you want espresso in that? And I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, we have like, so you want the espresso in? I'm like, isn't that included? They're like, no. So like, so you want the French vanilla with the actual, not the other French vanilla. I'm like, what? How is this so hard to order a freaking latte? I'm like, is this a Canadian thing? Like, oh my god, I felt so embarrassed because I'm just like, and I was like, oh my god, I feel like an idiot. I'm people behind me waiting to like order, and I'm just like, I'm not understanding how to order a French vanilla latte in Canada. Oh my god, it
That's
was
great.
so embarrassing. I was like, oh my god, and then apparently my boyfriend told me that it's not necessarily Canada. It's like this chain, like it was a certain chain, and but
Hmm.
it's not like in the East Coast. So like I think he had like a couple maybe in Washington, because Washington's like right by Vancouver.
Yeah.
But he
Yep.
knew how to order his latte, and I was like, Regan, you couldn't at least help me out here. Like you couldn't just kind of like give me the heads up or jump in when I'm sounding like an idiot in front of this registered person. Oh my god. So yeah, so that's oh my god, it was like the funniest. I was so
Something
oh
that.
yeah. Oh no, you're fine, no worries. Okay, yeah, we're talking about lattes. It's good conversation.
Yes.
But I want to talk about, you put that you're emotionally bulletproof. So, a question I have
Yes.
for you, since this is a mental health podcast, when you say you're emotionally bulletproof, when I read that, the way I took that is like nothing, nothing can get you down, which totally, I totally get that. But a lot of people who do listen to this as well struggle with like mental illness and such. So, I guess my question is like, what do you have to say to people who struggle with like clinical depression, bipolar, ADHD, like all of those like mental health problems?
So with medically diagnosed stuff, I tend to actually stay away from those just because it deals with medical stuff. I tell
Hmm.
people on the storytelling side of things, that's a little different. I tend to focus more there. Like for example, there was a young man down in Florida. He was going to college. He was 23 at the time, I believe, 22 or 23, but he has Asperger's, which, as you may know, is a form of autism.
Hmm.
And so his mom, who's a clinical psychologist, hired me, who's a college dropout, to work with her son because he was just stuck on the fact that he has Asperger's. And so in our first session, I was trying to help him get around that. I
Hmm.
said, take my skin color, for example. I said, I have brown skin, right? It's nothing
Hmm.
I can do about that. There's going to be people out there that don't like it. That's not my problem. Okay. I
Hmm.
was like, you have Asperger's. We're going to make you the best version of you with Asperger's. Because he kept saying, like, I'm not getting internships. I'm not getting jobs. It's because I have Asperger's. I'm like, no, it's because you don't know how to sell yourself. I was like, you have to learn to sell yourself. I said,
Hmm.
this thing you have isn't going away. So you have to learn to thrive in spite of. And so by the end of our sessions, I think we did 8 or 9 sessions, maybe 10 sessions together. But I ended up, the first part was getting him to believe in himself.
Hmm.
That was the first step. The second step was to redefine him. And it's like he sent me his resume. I helped him completely rethink all the jobs that he's ever worked. Because like he
Hmm.
just got stuck on what he did. I helped him expand on what his role was. And then the last one was teaching him how to interview. So we spent like the last 4 sessions of me being the interviewer and him interviewing. But if you look at the video from the first session where he was slumped over, hands over his face, like you could just tell he was not believing in himself. When we did that last session, he was the chest was up, he was upright, he was projecting his voice. I said, now you're ready to get out there and go after your dreams. Okay, I said Asperger's does not hold you back. Right, your vision can be stronger than whatever it is that you have. Because as we said earlier, the mind heals the body. So
Mm-hmm.
just because you might have something going on, that doesn't mean that you can't get out there and crush it. It's like, yeah, it might be a little harder for you, or you
Mm-hmm.
might have to put in some additional work that someone without whatever it is you're dealing with, but you can still get it done. The worst thing you can do is let that keep you in your box. So whatever it is you're
Right.
dealing with, thrive in spite of.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. Absolutely. I literally have the same mindset. I have like my ADHD is horrible. So bad. Oh my goodness. And then like I have like my highs and lows with bipolar, and pretty much like I have all the things in the alphabet, but I don't let that hold me back. And
Yes.
yeah, it is harder. I mean, with bipolar, like I'm medicated, so I'm stable, so I'm good for now.
Okay.
Hopefully, I mean it's gonna stay like that.
Look at the
Sorry.
look on your face.
For
He's like,
now.
for now.
And hope I was like, wait, let me not be negative. Let's have it stay there, right? But yeah, no, it can be hard for me to get out of bed and to be motivated, and it's like and a lot of it, my trauma keeps does that, as like pretty much pulls me down and such. And I do see a lot of things on social media, like in the mental health world where I'm trying to word this correctly, where it doesn't come off as like insensitive, because I understand because I was once there. Is where people think because they have all of these mental health problems that they can't do anything. And so I do see a lot of that. And the videos that do well on the Instagram account for Mentally Badass are the ones where it's humor, so I'm not like being like, oh, my life sucks. It's more like a
Mm,
joke. Like one thing that kind of was upsetting was since I have bipolar disorder, my health insurance is more life insurance, and not yeah life and health insurance, because they think I'm gonna just jump off a bridge.
yeah,
So when they told me with life insurance, because they said when they were State Farm was like, oh yeah, you're young and like you can do this life insurance for like be like $7 a month, and it was like a great deal. And so, but once they asked me all the questions and I filled everything out, with truth, they were like, okay, yeah, we have to up it because you have bipolar disorder. And I'm like,
mm,
honestly, that really like hurt, like hit me hard, because it's like I didn't ask for this. Like, you know what I
exactly.
mean? It's like, okay, I kind of understand it, I guess, from the financial. You think if just in case you think I'm gonna like off myself the next day, then you have to pay out, But also, isn't like technically isn't suicide doesn't count? I don't know, but anyway,
Yeah, it doesn't.
yeah, it doesn't. I don't know, but I guess they want to be careful on people with bipolar or something like that. And one time, the health insurance did not. There was like a private health insurance where they do have rights of denying me, but I was trying to find health insurance as a self-employed, so I had like a person that was helping me to find the right fit, and there were some that denied me because I have bipolar disorder. They're like,
Mm,
oh, yeah, when they looked you up, they see you're on this medication. I'm like, yeah, my mood stabilizer? They're like, yeah, they don't like that. Well, he didn't say it like that, but he was just like, yeah, so they found that out that you're on this medication, so they're denying you because you're like a high
that's
risk. And I'm
crazy.
like, and I was like pissed off. I was like, listen, they should, if anything, they should think I'm not high risk considering I'm helping myself. Like, there's a lot of people who are bipolar that are not about, healing and helping themselves, and then they end up like breaking the law or God forbid killing themselves. You know what I mean? Like, I'm helping myself. So you think that would show that it's not my fault that I have bipolar disorder, but I'm doing what I can to be stable and a good person in society. And it's like, wow. Like, so you telling me if I didn't have medication, if I wasn't giving a crap and just kind of going on with my day, then I would be saving so much money. It's like, wow, it's great to be punished for being
Yeah.
honest. And
I was
yeah, so
just
that's,
gonna say they wonder why people lie. That's why.
oh my god. And it's like I couldn't really even like I felt like the injustice there, but I'm like at the end of the day, they're private health insurance. They can do whatever they want. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's different if it's like
Yep.
healthcare.gov, like the state one that's doing it, then I guess that's like more like discrimination. But overall it was like it was upsetting. And things could really, like, people can identify themselves like that, like, oh, I have this and this, I can't do this, you know what I mean?
Mm,
But I mean, I'm not gonna, and I know people don't like labels, and I totally get that. The only reason I say that is because I like to know what I do have so I can help myself. You know what I mean? Because some therapists are like, "Oh, yeah, I don't want to like label you though," and I'm like, "Okay, well, can you give me something?" Just because every mental health problem is different. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So like,
Well, you said the key sentence a second ago, though. You said that's not your identity.
right?
And that's
Yes.
where a lot of people go wrong is they make it their identity. Just like
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning of my podcast, I always ask the guests, like I would say to you, who is Justine? And so many people couldn't answer that question. It's like they kept giving
Mm.
me their resume. And it's like that
Mm.
your resume is what you do. Right? That's not who you are. Like you strip away all of those other hats, what's left? So
Mm-hmm.
like I would tell someone, well, I was working with someone who had ADHD, and I said, "Who were you before you got that diagnosis?" Because like
Smart.
you gotta tap back into that person. Just because you got that diagnosis, you're taking on that as your persona now. Like that's all you
Mm.
are. No, you're a person that has ADHD. So how are
Mm-hmm.
we gonna navigate life in spite of?
Yeah.
So like with one thing my father always said, he's like he's like people are always gonna see the color of your skin. He said it's up to
Right.
you to help them see past it. So like yes, you have ADHD, you have bipolar. I'm not saying you personally, just in general, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's not going anywhere. So you got to
Mm-hmm.
blow up in spite of. And when the episodes come, you do what you got to do, you feel what you got to feel, and then remind yourself of your purpose. Like, have you ever seen the movie 50 First Dates?
I feel like I probably, it's a classic, so I probably could
Yes.
have over
Yeah,
the
so
years.
like
Yeah.
so the premise of that movie was like they lied to this girl, this woman that had brain damage, like her
Mm.
her long-term memory was gone, so they basically tried to recreate her last day every single day.
Yes.
Right? And then the man comes along and it's like, "Well, why does every day have to be like this?" And he put together a video of things that happened in her life and things that she missed, and so they had her watch that every single day. Face the reality. This is what you're dealing with. Now go enjoy the day. With too many times
Mm.
we take our reality, we keep it inside, and we try to put on this reality that's not real. Like Instagram is full
Mm-hmm.
of it. It's like I see people's pictures and videos and stuff. I'm like, they ain't that happy, or it's like, no, this one is going through stuff. Like, don't come out here and act like everything is just hunky dory when it's not. And that's
Yeah.
how people end up getting stressed out and depressed and all this other stuff. If you just stand up and be like, look, this is what's going on. You face the reality. Yeah, people might comment a couple and then they're going to forget all about it because they're dealing with their own nonsense.
Right.
That's what people have to understand. You just stand up, be your authentic self, just put it out there, and then just go on reaching for whatever your goal is.
And that's like the bulletproof concept, but you were saying, if you really think about it. Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of like celebrities have built, like, they say tough skin.
Mm.
And yeah, because if they're constantly, like, for example, like the Kardashians, they've had their fair share of people tearing them down, and at that point they're just like, whatever. It's like you can keep, it's like it's noise, and just like block it out. So that is like kind of like, and that's also like resilience too and such. But I am going to put your podcast link as well as your book in the, I'm going to
Thank
say
you.
job description. Oh my God. I think I was saying job description because you were saying resume. So it was like in my head.
Oh, yeah.
I want to put it in the job description, you know.
Great.
I mean, it kind of is if you really think about it. It's like your podcast and everything you do and such. Anyway, guys, I'm going to put all of that in the description. But thank you so much, Robert, for taking the time to come on to my podcast. I was very motivated, inspired by you, and I will make sure I go to the gym today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.